Hi, thanks for joining me tonight. My name is Melissa Kirsch, and as you can see, I'm the author of The Girl's Guide, and I am a certified adult, so I am fully qualified to conduct this webinar about how to be an adult. I wrote the book, The Girl's Guide, when I was in my 20s. I was in my second job. I was kind of trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. This might be where some of you are right now. And this was sort of I was wishing that there was some sort of volume of intelligence that I had that would sort of tell me how to make the big decisions in my life and whether I should quit my job and whether I should keep dating the guy that I was dating. And I felt like there were so many people trying to give me advice, and there was a lot of advice out there, but there was nothing that I felt like I trusted and nothing that was speaking directly to me. So that was sort of the impetus for writing the book. And I've now written the book twice because a new edition just came out in 2015, so we just recently updated and expanded it, and hopefully what we talk about tonight in the book will be useful to you. So without further ado, I'm going to move into my first section that I'd like to talk about. We're going to cover just 4 different areas tonight. The first is careers and work. The second is money and finance. The third is friendship. And the fourth is family. The book covers a lot more than this, but based on the questions that you guys submitted beforehand, these seemed like the areas that you wanted to concentrate on. So we'll have a little bit of time at the end to ask questions about other stuff in case anything comes up, but we'll sort of try to stick to these topics for the bulk of the webinar. So careers and work. So some of you are recent graduates or about to graduate, and many of you may have graduated sometime in the past. And when you're growing up and when you're thinking theoretically about what you're going to do with your life, there's, the world seems wide open and the options seem wide open to you. And then when you graduate, or when you approach graduation, it becomes sort of this scary thing where, the idea like, I'm going to be a veterinarian because I love dogs is suddenly something that doesn't seem realistic to you because you weren't that good at organic chemistry. So now you've got your whatever you majored in, and you feel like I want to take that out into the world and I want to do something amazing with it, but where are all the jobs and how am I supposed to find these jobs, and what if I don't get the right job, and what if I don't make enough money and I have to pay my rent, and what if I have to move home with my parents, and I didn't get the interview that she got, and there is a lot of anxiety that comes up. Uncertainty is scary, and I just want to start by saying that it's totally normal and that everybody goes through this, and everybody that has a job that's older than you went through this when they were graduating. Everybody your parents' age went through this as well. This is all completely normal, and it is scary. It is, it's probably the biggest transition of your life. The last gigantic transition might have been going off to college. The bigger transition is graduating and trying to find a job. So I have some bad news for you first about jobs. That is, your first job probably won't be your dream job, and that's okay. This is actually something to be sort of excited about. What you do when you get out of college might not be remotely related to what you're going to do for the rest of your life. It might not be in that life plan that you had for yourself. It might not sort of follow clearly from your psych major to being a psychologist immediately or whatever that was. So the good news, though, so don't hyperventilate yet, is that your first job probably won't be your last job. And this is what everybody will tell you, like every celebrity you can think of was like a bricklayer before they became an Oscar-winning actress. Everybody sort of starts doing something, figuring out what they want to do with their life, and they move on to other jobs and finally end up with what looks like a career, when they kind of hit on what they want to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about figuring out what it is you want to do. And before you get there, if you haven't quite figured that out yet, how you can sort of make the jobs that you have now meaningful for you and, contributing in some way to the jobs that you ultimately get. The big thing that the people worry about when they're graduating or when they're looking for a job is how they're going to find one. And I talk about the real reason for social networks is really to find a job, or to network, actually, if they are social networks, and they may have been a fantastic place for you to like post photos of last winter's formal and get feedback from friends. But places like Facebook, places like Twitter, LinkedIn, these are phenomenal places to actually find jobs and to network with people that you know. And it's not that that your friends from Kappa are going to be posting jobs that you're going to that you're going to be able to apply for, but just putting the word out there that you're looking for a job and being really upfront about it, saying what your skills are, what you're looking for. Somebody has a parent who has a friend who's looking for somebody and they pass their name along, just getting the word out there and being persistent. It's a really, easy way, very easy way to sort of start connecting with people and connecting with people who are doing things that you want to be doing. Obviously, Kappa Kappa Gamma has a phenomenal network, and that's probably been a massive resource for a lot of you. There are people advise you to do informational interviews with people, which is a great idea, but to find somebody that's in a field that you think you might like to work in, and then call them and invite them to coffee, and kind of pick their brain, as they say, about what their job is and whether it might be something right for you. The important thing in those situations is to make sure to sort of be respectful of people's time and send them thank you notes afterwards, so that you're getting that information, but you're not sort of putting anybody out in any way, because you're kind of on this fact-finding mission. You're taking as much advice as you can. You're taking it all under advisement so that you can figure out what you want to be doing. In the book, I sort of go into more detail about ways that you can network and ways that you can kind of figure out what you want to do, and we can have a little more time for questions about that at the end of this section, but I want to move on to this is, and I'm not here to sort of shake my finger at you, but this is something that you may not have an issue with at all, is cleaning up your digital reputation. When you're going on the job market, of course you know that you Google everybody you've ever met. Everybody you meet is going to Google you too. You want to make sure that anything that can surface in a Google search, searching for you on any social network, is only going to reveal something that you would want to show to somebody in a job interview. So whether it's a photo of you in a compromising position, or an essay that you wrote, or a blog that you've kept, you want to Google yourself and figure out how you would appear, and if you would appear like the kind of person who somebody would want to hire. Now, if you want to apply for a job as a blogger, then that might be fine that you have this blog in which you talked about your dating exploits or something. But if you want to go and work at an investment bank and everybody's buttoned up in suits, they might not look as kindly on that. So you just want to think about how you're representing yourself and what your online presence looks like. So these are sort of my 4 commandments for your first job, and these are really, really simple, and obviously they don't ensure success no matter what, but these are things that I've worked in at a lot of different places, and I've had a lot of different advice given to me, and I feel like there's sort of some ground rules for sort of like the lowest bar for succeeding. And the 4 things are: be early. Even if your boss gets in at 9, get there at 8:45. It never hurts to be the first one in the office and the last one to leave. I talk more in the book about, sort of balancing work and life and not working all the time, but just remembering to be early. It will make you feel more confident that you're not missing out on anything and that you're keeping up with your work and you're impressing people. Be humble. You know a lot, and you want to appear confident, and you don't want to appear retiring or shy, and you're trying to put your best foot forward. Just remember that there's a lot that you don't know, and because this is your first or second job, people don't expect you to know everything, so it's okay to ask for help, it's okay to ask for advice, it's okay to say, I don't know. Don't gossip. This is a big one, and this is one that I learned the hard way. It's really difficult not to gossip no matter what your workplace is. But this is something that I think that is really important to kind of being an adult, which is learning that, kind of speaking ill of other people creates a climate that you really don't want to be living in, and people that will gossip with you will gossip about you. So this is something to be learned. You don't want to be the person who's talking about your boss and then gets caught or anything like that. It's just so much easier if you can kind of keep it on the level and talk to your friends and your family about work, but not gossip at work. And the last thing is just put your phone away. For many of you that goes without saying, but while you're at work, unless your phone is a big part of your job, you want to sort of be off of it while you're there. Turn it off, keep it out of the way. remember that it's your personal life and that it shouldn't necessarily be invading your life while you're at work. So this is something that's important to remember, which is that you're in charge of how you spend your time. And what I mean by that is that you are making a choice with a job that you take and a job that you seek about where you want to put your energy and how you want to sort of be putting yourself in the world. And it's your decision. You know, you may end up having to take a job in order to make money that's not, as we said, the ideal job for you. But think about the fact that you're going to be spending upwards of 8 hours a day at this job, and you are the one who has to do it, so you're going to be getting a lot of different advice from your parents and well-meaning professors and friends, but ultimately it's up to you to make decisions. So you take all of their advice from those informational interviews, from everybody that you speak to, and say, like, I'm in charge of how I'm going to spend my day, I'm in charge of how I spend my time, and I have to figure out what's best for me. I have to pay my rent, I have to, you know, I have these responsibilities, but ultimately it doesn't matter that everybody around me thinks I should be a teacher. That's not what I want to do, and I want to do something else. And whatever you are doing, do it well. It's easy to say that, and of course, who doesn't want to do well in a job, but figuring out what's important to you in your job. Is it working as hard as you can, or is it being honest and expecting that other people will be honest with you? Is it having integrity? Is it having a positive attitude? Basically, once you're in that job, you can do this before you have a job even, just figuring out what's important to you, your own personal ideals, and start to develop what's, you know, known as a work ethic. You may have this already from school, but you sort of develop it as you grow up. It's just helpful so that you sort of have a guidepost as you proceed, and as your life gets more and more complicated, you can sort of come back to what you know to be true and what you know to be important about what you want in your job. You are the person who decides whether you're going to spend the day kind of sitting at your desk bored, plotting the next years of your life while you watch the clock tick, or if you're going to actually get into whatever you're doing and try to take what you can out of it and learn something while you're there, and understand that you're probably going to move on and that your first job isn't your last job. But whatever you're doing, do it well. Do it according to that worth ethic that you develop, and keep moving forward. Your job isn't a straightforward path from graduation to the, you know, your final resting place, you know, where you're going to, you know, retire. It's a brambly path that you have to navigate, and it can be very, very exciting. So that's sort of what I leave you with on the topic of jobs. So are there any questions at this point before I move on to money and finance, everybody's favorite topic?
Yes, we have one question that's come in, and this is from Melissa. And Melissa wants to know, how do you handle something on your digital profile that is negative and you are unable to be removed by you?
Okay, so the best thing to do with that, and I'm not sure, you know, kind of how major this is, if it's something that you're just minorly embarrassed about, but is to kind of, first of all, see about where it's posted and see if you can get in touch with whoever's in charge there and have them take it down. If it's, say, like, you know, if it's on Facebook, I don't know what sort of the rules are about that. It might be difficult. You can definitely lock down your privacy settings on social networks, though, so that people can't see certain things. Get really familiar with those privacy settings, the different lists, who can see what's posted. You know, during the job application process, you probably want to have your social profiles locked down. You do want to have a digital presence, of course. You're an exciting, interesting person and have done many cool things that you want to be located, but just sort of making sure that your personal stuff stays, you know, out of the mix for that time. If it's something that you can't get taken down, you can't get made private, the best thing to do is to bury it. And the way that you can do that, I go into a little bit of detail in the book, you know, is by creating different profiles and putting content up there that you're proud of and stuff about you that you're proud of. So there are sites that have sort of a higher ranking with Google where you can make an about.me site, say, and link to all your different your LinkedIn profile and your personal website and stuff. And that, since they have you know, good search engine optimization, would come up before whatever this sort of offending thing is that you're trying to get rid of. So there are ways to kind of bury things, and hopefully it's not something so bad that you feel that it could prevent you from actually getting a job, but there are ways to kind of fix it up and to clean it up. I hope that helps. Okay, so I'm going to move on to money and finance, and I think that if there are probably people clicking off right now, like I can't deal with this. This is going to be boring and horrible and terrifying and complicated. And I promise you, this is going to be like the most lighthearted and easiest discussion of money and finance you're ever going to have. So also because you don't have to discuss anything, it's just me talking. So basically, let's move forward. I don't like this any more than you do, but it can actually be not that terrifying. So there's this ridiculous name that your generation has gotten labeled with it, which is generation debt. And we know all the reasons for this. We know about student loans, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. But I'm saying that generation debt doesn't have to be something that you're saddled with, and this doesn't have to be true of you. You might already have debt. Hopefully you don't. We're going to talk a little bit about staying out of debt and how to manage your money in a responsible way without going bananas, and hopefully keeping you from being a member of generation debt. So being financially responsible isn't about condiment-only meals or wearing your underwear inside out to save on laundry money. What I mean by that is that when just that sort of, I don't know about you guys, but when I start thinking about putting myself on a budget or saving money, I think like life is going to suck. It's going to be terrible. I'm going to have to deny myself things. It's going to be an upsetting, grueling lifestyle where I can't have the things that I want, or I can't go out with my friends because they all make more money than I do, or I'm not going to be able to, you know, be able to afford the things that I'd like to buy for myself. That actually doesn't have to be true, and it's can be very, very simple. And obviously this is a simplified version of what I would love to go into detail about, but there are some sort of easier said than done, but these are kind of the minimum things that you need to do in order to be kind of a financially responsible adult. Those things are create a budget, and a budget is basically, you know, you can find spreadsheets online for how to do this, and you can just do it in a notebook basically, but it's basically writing down what your expenses are, what you know you have to pay for each month, figuring out how much money you have coming in, and then it's simple addition and subtraction from that. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. It doesn't have to involve Quicken. It doesn't have to, unless you want it to involve anything really that's that complicated at all. And there are lots of sites out there like Mint and that will make all of that really, really easy for you. So once you make that budget, the harder thing actually is sticking to it. And another thing that you absolutely have to do is check your credit report. If you have a credit card already, if you're, then this is essential. If you don't have a credit card already, then you'll want to get a credit card and start establishing credit, but you want to find out what your credit report looks like, and then you can sort of take steps after that to figure out how to clean it up if there's any problem there. Once you have a credit card, at the very least, you have to pay the minimum every month. Now, I don't advocate that. I advocate paying off a credit card in full every single month and not spending more than you have, but I know that sometimes that's not possible. You always, 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 always have to pay the minimum every single month, no matter what. No, you have to find a way because your credit is extremely valuable, and to you, and having good credit is extremely valuable, and it follows you for your entire life. So by paying the minimum, you can keep your credit good for a very, very long time. Open a retirement account. This is important and something that possibly you can't even think about until you have a job that's actually provides you with retirement account options. But as soon as you're able to, opening a retirement account, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, and being responsible and respectful with your money, which is, it sounds a little kind of tutti frutti or something, but actually just thinking about the fact that you earn it, and that when you spend it, that you're participating in commerce responsibly, and that you're buying things that mean something to you, and that you're not just kind of shopping to get out of a bad mood, or shopping because you're bored or whatever that is, just kind of thinking about what you're doing with your money and being respectful with it and respectful of, which is being respectful of yourself in a way, the fact that you earned that money or you borrowed that money or wherever the money came from, and you want to be responsible and respectful with it. So I say to think of budgeting a little bit like dieting. Um, some and basically the beginning of a diet I think is the hardest part of a diet. You uh, you want to have a healthy diet. You don't want to starve, right? So you should feel good about what you're cutting out, which are kind of, maybe it's you can't stop buying expensive bags or you can't stop going out to fancy dinners. And once you've sort of cut back, you've decided what you're cutting out, then you have this diet set up and you have a budget set up or you have a diet set up that you don't have to feel guilty when you splurge every now and then because you sort of have this system, you have some order by which you can live. So a budget allows you to do that and allows you to occasionally treat yourself to something without feeling bad about it or without feeling out of control, and not feeling afraid of your bank balance or worried too much about money. And so made the parallel with dieting that clear, but for me, having sort of a healthy diet and sticking to eating certain foods and not eating certain other foods regularly helps me to feel like, okay, when I want to splurge and have such and such, I don't feel like I'm completely out of control with my eating, and I do think the same way about money. What's a 401k and who could ever run that far? Many of you probably know that a 401k is actually not a road race, which is what I thought it was when I got out of college, and it's actually a retirement account. And it sounds complicated. The K is like the part of some sort of finance code that it's referring to, and it really is actually quite simple. A 401k is something that's provided by a job that you have, and it's you decide that you're going to put a certain amount of your paycheck, each of your paychecks, into this savings account or this investment account, something that's set up by your employer. And after a certain period, say 2 years of working in a job, your employer will start to match the money that you're putting in there. So if you're putting $1 from every paycheck in there, your employer will start putting $1 just free to you in that account also. So you're taking money out of your paycheck before you even get it and putting it into a savings account that's going to keep accruing interest, earning money on itself, so that if you do this for tens of years, that you will then have enough money to retire. That's sort of the idea. It can be very, very difficult to feel like you have enough money to put into a 401k or any kind of retirement account when you feel like your salary is barely going to let you pay your rent with 4 roommates. So this is something that you want to get set up as soon as you can, and you want to put in as much as you can, because once your employer starts matching it, that's free money, and that's something that you really, you owe it to yourself to take advantage of that if you can. There are other kinds of retirement accounts. If you're not in a job that offers one, there's the most popular one is an IRA, and talk a lot more about that in the Girls Guide, but it's basically the same principle as the 401k, with slightly different rules about how much you can put in, and obviously no employer that's matching what you're putting in there. But again, it's a account that's going to keep earning interest and that you don't touch until you retire. A little bit about credit cards. I think of them kind of as the gateway drug to lots of other kinds of debt. If you know people who are in debt and it's not student loan debt, typically, it's credit card debt, and it's really, really easy to get into credit card debt. Like what I said before about having a credit card and paying off at the very least the minimum every month, just being careful with credit cards. That's something to just kind of keep an eye out. When you're a new graduate, credit card banks prey on you. They know that you have a fresh, clean slate, and they will give you all kinds of credit cards, and it kind of feels like, oh, I have enough money. It's not actually real. I can just use these cards, and you can get into trouble very quickly. And once you kind of mess up your credit, as I said before, it follows you around for a long time. So you want to be careful with those. And my feeling is that nobody really needs more than one credit card, so you're going to be getting all of these offers. Choose wisely. I talk in the book a little bit more about the different kinds of cards, but really one card should be fine, and ideally you're not spending more than you have, so you're paying it off every month. Oops. Okay. This kind of got cut off here, but this says Sally Mae is not a poor farm girl in a gingham pinafore. And uh, Many of you may already know that Sally Mae is a private outfit out of Pennsylvania, to which about 1/3 of college private student loans get sold. So Sally Mae is basically the person who comes rapping on your door and tells you 6 months after graduation that it's time to pay off student loans. And Sally Mae is a very sweet name and makes her sound kind of cute, but it's actually not very cute at all. It's the man come to take the money back. The good news, the bad news about student loans is that it's gigantic and it's ridiculous and it makes you wonder if college was worth it. And I promise you, it was worth it. You know, higher education continues to be a wise investment. Everybody agrees on this, but it can be very expensive. And if you have loans, you're not unlike many of the rest of us. The total amount of student loan debt recently exceeded $1 trillion, which is that seems like a cartoon number. It's an average of $33,000 per student, and that's at schools that cost all different amounts. So the good news about student loans is that interest rates are much, much lower on student loans than they will be on any kind of loan that you're likely to get in your lifetime, so mortgage or anything else. So you have the government on your side, kind of trying to negotiate on your behalf and keep those rates low. There are a lot of different payback options, and Congress is kind of working all the time, and there's a lot of legislation going on right now. They recently passed the Bipartisan Student Loan Certainty Act, which links student loans to financial markets so that interest rates for the next year are sort of linked to how the economy is doing, which you can read more about. It's kind of fascinating. This can end up being good for you with loans. It can end up being bad or not so great depending on how the economy is doing. But it kind of puts some limits on how high the interest can go up, which is good. Just a little bit about the financial thing and the tutti frutti thing I was mentioning earlier. There's kind of an old trope in psychology about the abundance versus scarcity mentality, which is the idea that if you feel like you have enough and you act as if you have enough, you come from a place of abundance, then you will have enough, versus scarcity and being sort of tight and clenched and feeling like you're going to starve or you're going to be out on the street. And I'm not saying that, if you act like you live in a world of abundance, then the universe will provide for you. But I am saying that sort of living in a spirit of generosity, and that doesn't necessarily mean with money. It means with friendship. It means with kindness. It means with helping people rather than being sort of tight and closed and scared and feeling like you don't have enough. Kind of spreads to everything else in your life. It's weird, but it does. So just think about that. Something to think about. I won't go too deeply into it now. Are there any questions at this point about finances?
We don't have any questions at this time.
Okay, great. So I'm going to move on to friendship, or the company that you keep. So while you're in college, it's really easy to feel like you have too many friends. There's too much going on. Your friends are there all the time. They live in the dorms near you. They live in the sorority house with you. You don't have to do much in order to find a social life. And when you get out of college, it becomes much more difficult, depending on where you live, to have that same feeling that you're, kind of overwhelmed with people to hang out with. You will find after college that your friends change a lot too. And something that I think is important is sort of allowing friends to change. So when you graduate, everybody's at a different point in their lives. They're starting jobs, they're moving to new places, their relationships are forming, relationships are ending. And, eventually some of the people that you're friends with when you graduate college, you might not be friends with when you're 60, or you might. And in order to sustain those friendships, we have to sort of let each other change. And we'll talk a little bit more about this when we talk about family in a second. But friendships should be elastic like a good pair of underpants. They need to stretch. They need to allow for changes. They need to allow for people to kind of try on different personalities and different lifestyles and different jobs and different friend circles, and for that to be okay. So it can be difficult when you see, she from something minor to, she, never talked like that before she started working at that place, or, maybe you have a friend who's, gotten into drugs or fallen into a crowd that you don't get along with or something. There are all these changes that are happening, and not that you should just stand idly by if your friend is in trouble, but that you need to kind of still be there for each other and let each other change and let each other kind of help support each other in that change. So, and by the same token, your friends are sort of expecting you to go on your own adventures and to find your own way and to, try on figuring out who you want to be and letting you, take an improv class and make a fool out of yourself, or letting you, go out with somebody that you never thought you would be dating and who's different and exciting for you or whatever that is. You want your friends to stay with you through that. So just kind of remember that. We can't kind of, cast ourselves in amber the way that we are on graduation day and expect that everything's going to stay just as perfect and solid as it is at that time. Or what about friends versus friends? So your real friends, those friends that you made in college, those friends that you still have from growing up, it can be very, very easy once you get out of school and you're not living around each other all the time to kind of have a kind of digital only relationship with people. No matter how many friends you have, though, and I say, in quotes, friends you have on Facebook, you still need those real world friends. And of course, you know this, but you really have to sort of consciously sometimes make time and say, like, I've been texting with her, for weeks and we never get together. Actually want to get together and have a drink and sit down and find out what's going on face to face with our phones in our bags and look at each other. Or I've, been retweeting everything that she posts and I've been Snapchatting her all the time, but that's not the same actually as like having that face-to-face time of saying, like, you know what, I would love to come and visit you for the weekend, or I would love to, even just like talk on the phone, which is a novel thing, or FaceTime or whatever, excuse me, is easiest. Remember that we need actually a support network that can complement our digital network. And it's not always the easiest to make time for people and to make time to actually get together, but it's super duper important. So a little bit about friendship and courtship, or friendship and dating. Basically the old maxim is basically we put our friends first, and that's not always possible. When you get into a relationship, especially the more adult relationships, obviously the more serious relationships after college, they can become all-consuming, and you kind of feel like, I want to concentrate on this relationship, I want to concentrate on, building my future and, thinking about getting married or whatever that is. It's tricky, but in the same way that you want to kind of keep your friends close to you and be flexible with them, you want to keep them with you through whoever it is that you're dating. It may feel serious and end up not being serious. It may feel serious and end up being very serious. But whatever the outcome is of the relationship that you're in, the romantic relationship, you want to make sure that you still have your friends, the girlfriends that you had before, and you want to keep nurturing those friendships. Not only does that keep you interesting in the relationship that you're in because you have a life outside of the romantic relationship, but it's really important just to have that support, especially as we get older and we move, all over the place and we separate from each other. We need to kind of keep that support network and make sure that we don't get isolated. So that's really, really important to kind of be thinking about that. And you can think about that whether you or your friends are getting into serious relationships or not. When you go out at night, you meet some interesting people and you kind of have your eye on one of them and think like, oh, maybe, that person's kind of cute, and, your friend comes along. We all have that friend who will like flirt with the person that you've had your eye on. That's not cool, as we all know. We want to kind of put our friends first instead of thinking about what we want in those situations. So we want to be kind of thinking about how to be a good friend in these courtship situations and not putting those romantic interests before the friendships. We're going to talk about family in a second, but I just want to talk about the idea of a chosen family. Whether you like your family or you don't like your family, they're biased, and they have an opinion of you, and they think of you in a certain way. Your friends are your contemporaries, and they're living in the same world that you are. and they're encountering the same milestones that you are at the same times that you are. Your dad probably isn't moving into his first apartment now or getting his first job. And many of us don't really live close to our actual families. So think of your friends kind of as your surrogate family. Um, think of that kind of family of choice that you want to form close bonds with. There's no reason why we can't, have more than one family, why we can't kind of be supported wherever we are and bring people close to us that make us feel good, that support us, whom we can talk to. For some of us, be a replacement for family where the dynamic isn't great. For other of us, it's just a complement to a family that we love but that happens to live far away, or a family, we just want to have more sort of loving, supportive people in our lives. And it's really, really important to do that. So in the same way that, maybe you go home for Thanksgiving with your family, you want to create rituals with your chosen family, with your friends. So maybe it's just getting together with one friend for brunch every other Sunday or something, or it's making sure that you and your roommates from college have a Google Hangout or something once a month. I have a friend who has friends that she's had from college for 15 years, and they still get together and they have a reunion every year, and they rent a house and they all kind of reestablish those bonds, which is really, really important. You want to sort of be creating that support system, selecting people to bring close to you now that you actually want to be your family. So before we move on to your real family, are there any questions about friendship?
We don't have any questions at this time.
Okay, great. So I have some news about your family, which is that your parents have always been human. When you're small, it's you kind of necessarily see your parents as superhuman. You see them as superheroes. You see them, they're providing everything for you, and they actually are sort of. You're completely helpless, and they do everything for you. When you grow up, you have to see your parents as human beings, and you realize that they're not superheroes, and they do have flaws, and they do mess up, or they do, they have a bad day, and it can be really eye-opening to kind of start thinking of your parents as adults just like you. And at the same time, it's important that your parents start seeing you as an adult, which can be really, really challenging for everybody. I mean, renegotiating a relationship with somebody like this is massive, and it can be very tough. Your parents have seen you as this from, a helpless baby growing up into an adorable little girl and into the grown up that you've become. And that's really difficult for them too. That's something that they, had always tried to imagine but couldn't. So for them, it can be very difficult to kind of see you as an adult. And this is kind of where the friction tends to arise with our families, where we are different people now. We're grown up, we're living on our own in one fashion or another, and we are trying to negotiate adult relationships with our parents, and that can be really tough. In this effort, your siblings can be your allies. If you have siblings, some of us get along with our siblings, others not so much. Your siblings grew up in the same family as you and can give you so much perspective on your parents and can help you, and you can kind of be there for each other in a way that you might have taken for granted when you were growing up. As adults, and when your siblings become adults as well, you have that shared experience, and you don't have to waste time kind of telling them any sort of backstory about yourself the way that you might with a friend. You don't have to explain a lot of things about family to them. Try to get along with your siblings, make them your allies. It's incredible how much this can help you, especially if you're having trouble kind of figuring out what your role is with your family. It can sometimes be easier to renegotiate that relationship with a sibling first, because you guys are obviously closer in age than you are to your parents. Something that I learned from a friend of mine is to be each other's personal assistants. My sister and I call each other when it's one of our parents' birthdays or their anniversary. We want to help each other out and remind each other of family responsibilities and kind of keep the family unit healthy. And so being each other's kind of best friend in that way, there are always going to be conflicts with siblings, but to the extent that you're able to try to make your siblings your allies. So then there's kind of when you're living on your own and you go home, whether that's for vacation, or you're going home for the holidays, or you're, going back to live home after graduation. You're an adult, but to your family, you're still the little girl in the puffy astronaut snowsuit who went by the nickname Kitty and got blue poster paint all over the white duvet. And this is basically your parents, your family still see you as a child, and it can be really difficult to remember that. To remember, wait a minute, I'm an adult. I have car payments. I pay my own rent. I have a partner. I have a job that I hold down. I buy my own clothes. Whatever it is that you have outside that life that you have been living, whether it's for the 4 years of college or since you've graduated, and then you go home and suddenly you're this little girl again, and we very easily fall into those roles, and it's easy to sort of like regress into an infant around our families. And the best you can do when this happens, whether it's at the Thanksgiving table or it's when you've actually moved home with your family, is to remember that while you've still got that little girl inside of you, you actually are the person who has that house 3,000 miles away, who's living that exciting life, and you feel vulnerable and maybe like you're not getting the respect that you deserve. And that kind of never goes away. You talk to people who are older and they still feel that way. Maybe you see that when your mom and your grandmother or something, that there's a dynamic that they kind of repeat, that they kind of get stuck in. And it's all part of renegotiating that relationship, kind of reminding yourself and having touchstones. Maybe it's like, texting one of your friends while you're at home and kind of resetting and making sure that you remember who that adult that you've become and are able to kind of assert yourself with your family and feel like an adult and to the best of your ability. It made sense when you were growing up for your family to assign you kind of a role in the family, but that's something that we can try to retire as we get older and not just kind of act out those labels that we were reduced to as children. So once you kind of figure this out and figure out that it is happening, it's something that can be easier to step out of. A little bit about moving home after college. About 45% of grads go back and live with their families. This does not make you a loser. It is actually when almost 50% of college grads are moving home, it's just as normal as living on your own. It can be tough. There are some things that you can do to make it easier. Basically, that involves a lot of good communication with your parents. It involves talking to your parents. Probably wasn't in anybody's original plan, maybe that you move back home, but this you're now a tenant kind of arrangement that they have, is something that they didn't plan on, that nobody planned on. So plan on setting up some ground rules that'll kind of keep you from wearing out your welcome. I recommend that you pay rent if you can, even if it's some nominal amount. It helps sort of keep that transactional relationship with your family. Some parents are going to say they would never, ever let you pay rent. Bless them and ask them that maybe that they put that money into a savings account for you or something so that you have a little nest egg built up when you move out. It helps just get comfortable with the idea, even if it's $50 a month of paying rent, so that you will be used to it once you get out on your own. Set an end date for when you're going to move out. Try to figure out when that's going to be, when you feel like you're going to be live on your own, and put it all in writing. Whatever the rules are, whether it's when you're going to get home, or what you're going to do to contribute around the house, or what that rent is, or if you're going to help with utilities or whatever it is, put it in writing, kind of like a lease or some kind of contract, so that everybody kind of feels like there's the relationship of your parents and their child, and then there's kind of this contractual thing that's a business arrangement, and the two don't have to get so muddied. A little bit about being a good daughter as you grow up. As I said earlier, it's not easy for your parents, it's not easy for you, and there are a few things that you can do to kind of show your parents that you love them and to kind of show them that they've done a pretty good job raising you. And that the first thing that you can do is tell them. We underestimate kind of what our parents want to hear from us and the power of actually a handwritten card. Sometimes we actually have moments where we actually appreciate our parents really poignantly, and stop at that moment, and write your parents a short note and let them know that you're grateful. It really means a lot, and it really does a lot to strengthen that relationship. You want to kind of keep the lines of communication open with them as well. You want to call them, text them, email them regularly. you want to listen to them when they talk to you. You might disagree with them, but you want to sort of get in the habit of listening to them, again, treating them with respect, even as you feel like maybe sometimes they're not getting who you are. Spend time with them whenever you can. Invite them to go do things with you, to go to an art opening or to a car show or whatever you think you might all enjoy. Visit them even when it's not a holiday. And have your parents come visit you. You know, shake up the dynamic a little bit. If you always go home, then you say, you know, I live, you know, 1,500 miles away now. I'd love for you to come and visit me. Once they see sort of the life that you're living on your own, it can become easier for them to sort of imagine you as separate from them. And make the time with your parents count. You know, sometimes we go home and we just want to go in our room and read a magazine. Really engage with them. Try to spend time with them. Do something that gets you all excited, whether it's just, you know, sitting around and playing cards or going to the movies or going for a hike or whatever that is. Stay in close contact with them so that you don't have to sort of update them on every single thing that's been going on in your life every time that you talk on the phone. You want to just kind of keep in good touch with them. So I'm going to wrap up now and just say that, you know, I've given you a lot of information here. It's a lot to take in. It's all in The Girl's Guide, which is the book that I wrote, but I would love for you to ask me any questions that you have now, or you can also tweet at me and ask me questions. We've sort of just touched the tip of the iceberg, but I'm happy to go into a little more depth in the time that we have remaining or to answer specific questions. And, you know, just one thing that someone said to me when I graduated was, it was really simple, but I've kind of kept it with me, which is enjoy every moment. And it's impossible, right, to enjoy every single moment. But if you kind of think about that and think that, like, we only have so many moments, you know, and that this is all complicated and crazy right now, and it feels like there's a lot going on, and it never really stops. That life is complicated, but try to enjoy as much of it as you can, and, you know, good luck. So if you have any questions?
Yes, we have one that just came in. How do you get toxic friends out of your life?
Oh, gosh. Well, there are many things that you can do to get toxic friends out of your life. Sort of, I think that good for you for figuring out that this person is toxic. I think that that can be sort of tough because we don't want to sort of identify our friends as toxics or say that this person is bad for me. We don't want to give up on people in that way and say, you know, we have to break up, basically. And, you know, this is something to really be taken seriously. Like, a breakup with a friend is just as serious as a breakup with a romantic partner. And it isn't talked about as much, but it actually can be extremely profound and really, really difficult depending on how much you have invested in that relationship with your friend. So good for you for kind of figuring that out and figuring out who this toxic person is. As far as getting rid of them, I'm assuming that you've sort of figured that this isn't a friendship worth saving. So it can be complicated if they're kind of, you know, friends with your friends and all of that, but kind of being pretty straightforward can be difficult but helpful, and saying, you know, if you feel like you can talk to them and saying, like, you know, having a frank conversation, that's possible. But what I feel, you know, kind of doesn't sound as direct, and I usually advocate for directness, but actually I think is a lot more humane, is kind of like the slow fade, which I think is kind of being busy and kind of giving the hints, because it's not a relationship that you've kind of locked into, like a romantic relationship, and maybe declared that you're a couple, so that you can kind of be busy, or you can kind of, without being mean and without any malice, just sort of start to break those bonds a little bit, and, you know, not return the texts immediately, not make plans to get together all the time, and sort of lessen the interaction and do kind of that fade out and try to break it off in that way. The most important thing, I think, is to do it without malice and to do it without kind of being mean or without kind of creating any more ill will than might already be there. You don't need that. It will make it messier. You don't want to make things weird for the friends that you guys have in common. You don't want to create a situation where people are taking sides. And you want to leave the possibility open. Who knows that you guys might become friends again in the future. You never know. This person's toxic right now. They're not good for you. Who knows? This is somebody you might want in your life later. It's totally fine to grow apart from people, and it's totally normal, and you definitely want to get away from these people that you feel like are not good for you. So I think that kind of that gentle breaking it off without kind of, you know, cutting it off at the knees, I think is probably the most graceful way to do it. And I hope that is in some way possible with what you're doing without just sort of going dark, that you can kind of do a gradual breaking it off.
Great, thank you. We had one more question come in. Any advice for applying to jobs?
Um, sure. I'm not sure kind of which kinds of jobs, but as far as applying to jobs go, generally you're going to want to have a resume, and you're going to want to sort of figure out what it is that you want from the job. So let's say you see a job listing, you want to have a resume that's sort of tailored for that job, and then you want to put together a cover letter, which is just a letter to go with your resume, in which you say what your intent is, why you want the job, and why you think you'd be good for the job. I could go on from there. That's not a lot to go on, but I think that the most important thing is kind of figuring out what your strengths are and putting together a good resume. Your resume is, it's a record of your experience. You don't have to have just one. If you think, you want to apply for jobs in fashion, and that could be fashion marketing, or that could be in sales, then you're going to want to have one resume that kind of makes you seem like somebody who would be a really good marketer, and another resume that would highlight anything that you've done that had to do with sales. And you can have a million different resumes for a million different kinds of jobs, in which you kind of move the information around and highlight the different skills that you want to highlight for that job. I hope that's helpful.
Okay, thank you to our presenter, Melissa, for leading the session, and thank you for your participation tonight. As we close the webinar, a survey will open on your screen. You'll be prompted to respond to a few evaluation questions. Please take a moment to share your thoughts on tonight's webinar. Your feedback will help us shape future webinar training events. If you have any additional questions or comments whatsoever, you can send an email to Karen Holmes, kholmes@kkg.org. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.